Some places are quiet for a reason, and some moments are better left unexplored. Tonight, you'll hear 6 true stories that prove fear can find you anywhere, even when you think you're alone. I've always been drawn to graffiti. Some people call it art, others call it delinquency. I don't really care. To me, it's about creating something in the quiet moments, in places where nobody will bother you. Over the years, I learned that the graffiti community can be brutal. Artists fight over respect, location, and recognition, and arguments can get ugly fast. Because of that, I adopted a stealthy approach. I look for spots nobody else visits, places where my work might be the only thing that exists there. Old train lines are perfect for this. Decommissioned cars, rusting quietly in hidden yards, make for endless canvases. That night, I decided to check out a spot I had found earlier on Google Maps. It was a nameless stretch of tracks, abandoned, quiet, and perfect for a few tags. My friend Lucas came along. He wasn't as obsessed with graffiti as I was, but I liked having him around. Most of my friends didn't really understand my passion, but Lucas respected it. Even more, he was good company, someone to share the strange thrill of sneaking around abandoned places with. We started by smoking a joint. I wasn't much of a smoker. The last time I'd indulged, anxiety had hit me hard. But Lucas enjoyed it, and I decided to go along. Maybe it wasn't the smartest decision, but I figured I could handle it. We walked along the tracks, admiring the silence around us. The train cars were clean, untouched, not a single tag in sight. My excitement grew. To get first dibs on this perfect canvas was almost intoxicating. I tossed Lucas a can, and he started messing around with it while I prepared my first tag. Within minutes, I had my work up, 3 pieces, aligned perfectly, each building off the other. I stepped back and admired them. The rush of pride was immediate. I tossed my empty cans back the way we came, enjoying the satisfying clatter as they hit the metal tracks. That's when I first heard it, a muffled clang from behind us. At first, I thought it was nothing. Maybe the wind, maybe some debris. But the sound had a weight to it, a presence. My heart started racing, and I noticed Lucas had frozen too. Before I could react, someone or something picked up one of my empty cans and hurled it at us. It clanged loudly against the train. You can't just... I barely heard the voice over my own panic. The next moments were chaos. Shouts, rapid footsteps, and then the sound that made me feel like my chest had been ripped out. A gunshot. Adrenaline coursed through me. I stumbled, almost dropping my phone, but we ran. We ran hard. Down the tracks, past intersections, until the lights of a main road finally came into view. Only then did we stop, gasping, trembling, completely aware of how close we had come to disaster. I couldn't call the police. We were breaking the law. There was no safety net. And yet, the terror didn't end that night. A few weeks later, I returned during the day. I needed closure. I needed answers. This time, I came prepared, with my Glock 17 tucked safely in my bag. What I found chilled me to the bone. The cars I had tagged were now covered with ugly blotches of red paint, deliberately defacing my work. And then I saw it, a train car, its door wide open. Inside, a chair sat in the middle of the car, ropes and chains scattered around. Some ropes were coiled neatly around the legs of the chair. Others lay haphazardly on the floor. And the smell, oh God, the smell, bleach, overpowering, like the entire car had been scrubbed clean. I couldn't comprehend why anyone would do this, or why they had been so aggressive the night we were chased. I took one careful step toward the car, considering taking a picture, when a metal clang echoed somewhere further down the train. My instinct screamed at me to run, and I obeyed. That was enough. The fear wasn't just about law-breaking anymore. It was something far darker, something I couldn't explain. Weeks later, I thought about returning again, just to document what I had seen. But I never did. Sometimes, late at night, I can still hear that gunshot echoing in my mind. The memory of the bleach-smelling car, the chair, the chains, and the sheer aggression of whoever was waiting for us. It's all burned into my brain. I don't know who they were. A homeless person? Someone with a vendetta? Or someone just cruel? I don't have answers, and maybe I never will. What I do know is this. The thrill of graffiti, the pride of leaving your mark, can be intoxicating. But sometimes, chasing that rush leads you straight into danger you can't anticipate. And even when the streets are quiet, even when you think you're alone, the darkness may be watching and waiting. After the first incident on the tracks, I thought I was done with that place. The memory of the gunshot, the red paint blotches, and the bleach-smelling car haunted me. But life went on. I tried to push it aside, focusing on school, friends, and my upcoming summer trip to Germany. But boredom has a way of pulling you back to old habits, especially when you spent so much time chasing adrenaline. On my last day home, restless and craving a little thrill, I found myself driving toward another secluded set of tracks I knew well. These tracks were different. Surrounded by thick trees and winding paths, they led into a long, straight tunnel before opening up onto a small clearing and, eventually, a massive bridge over water. When I was younger, my friends and I used to train hop here, racing across the bridge for fun. But now, going alone, I had to be careful. There was no way to hop off the train and get back safely if I miscalculated. I parked my car, took a deep breath, and started walking along the tracks. The afternoon sun filtered through the leaves, but the tunnel ahead was dark, foreboding. I waited for a train to pass, just like we used to. My heart thumped in anticipation and a touch of fear. After a few minutes, I felt a familiar vibration under my feet. The train was approaching. I ducked behind some bushes, letting it glide past. Once it moved far enough, I picked a car that seemed manageable, jogged alongside, and grabbed hold of the ladder. My grip was steady, practiced, but my mind raced as the train entered the tunnel. Something strange happened. A flash of light from deep inside caught my eye. I assumed it was a reflection off the rails or a loose wire sparking. I should have dismissed it, but instinct told me to pay attention. The adrenaline surged as I swung myself onto a moving train. Then it happened. A hand, coming out of the darkness, grabbed my leg. My stomach dropped. My grip on the ladder became the only thing keeping me from falling onto the tracks. I kicked and screamed, heart pounding, but the train carried me forward faster and faster, and the hand let go, or maybe I had just escaped its reach. I barely had time to catch my breath when another hand slapped against my leg. Terror surged through me. I scrambled up the ladder, away from the dark grass, praying the next set of cars would be empty. My pulse was deafening in my ears. Every instinct screamed to run, hide, survive. And then I realized I had no choice. The tunnel was long, straight, and lined with darkness. To go back the way I came was impossible. To go forward meant facing whoever, or whatever, was in there. I reached into my bag and pulled out my phone. I whispered a desperate warning. "You better stay back or I'll shoot." My voice echoed unnaturally off the tunnel walls. For a moment, there was silence. The hands didn't return. The faint clicking I'd been hearing, a noise like a tongue clicking or a machine, stopped as well. I didn't have time to wait and see if bluffing would work. I quickly pulled up a gunshot sound effect on YouTube, blasting it through the phone. The echo in the tunnel made it sound impossibly loud, almost real. I sprinted forward, praying that whoever was lurking would believe me, that the illusion of firepower would be enough. I ran blindly, adrenaline giving me speed I didn't know I had. Each step was calculated yet desperate, each movement fueled by pure survival instinct. When I finally emerged on the other side, the light of the clearing hit me, but it didn't feel safe. Shadows lingered along the tracks. Two figures stood there, tall, imposing, unmoving. Their silhouettes sent a chill down my spine. My legs moved on autopilot, jogging away without a glance back. And then it happened. The scream, a sound that could only be described as barbaric, almost human but twisted beyond recognition, emanated from deep inside the tunnel. My stomach sank. I didn't stop running. I didn't pause to think. All I could do was put distance between myself and that darkness. I couldn't tell if they had been waiting to drag me back, or the hands in the tunnel were part of some sick game. What I did know was simple. I wasn't coming back here, not ever. Walking home, my mind replayed every detail. The flash of light, the hands, the echoing scream, the two silhouettes in the clearing. Questions flooded my mind. Who were they? Why were they there? A homeless person, an obsessed stalker, or something far worse? Every possibility felt horrifying. I remembered the first incident, the bleach-smelling car, the chains, the chair. It all connected in my mind. Whoever had been there before had been waiting for someone to cross a line, and I had been the target. I thought about my younger friends, the thrill we had chasing adrenaline, hopping trains, leaving marks. It seemed innocent then, but looking back now, I realized just how reckless we had been. Curiosity is a powerful thing, but it can also lead you into the darkest corners of the world. Corners you weren't meant to see, corners that leave you shaken for months, maybe years. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every creak of my apartment, every distant car, felt like it was the echo of those hands reaching for me. I couldn't tell anyone exactly what happened. Not my parents, not my friends, without them thinking I was exaggerating. But I knew the truth. The truth was that the tracks, the tunnel, the shadows, they weren't safe. And even when daylight comes, even when the world seems normal again, the memory of that fear lingers. It waits in the corners of your mind, whispering that the darkness you survived is never truly gone. Working for the MTA in New York City. You think you've seen it all. After 7 years on the job, the sights, the chaos, the strange moments, they barely faze you anymore. But there's one experience I can't shake, one memory that still sends chills down my spine, even years later. It happened about 2 years into my job, back when I was stationed at High Street Station in Brooklyn. It was a quiet night, eerily quiet. Empty platforms are unnerving in a city that never stops moving. I was finishing routine maintenance, sweeping and checking equipment, when I heard a clang from deep inside the tunnel. It was a kind of metallic noise you expect from a drop tool or a loose rail, but something about it felt wrong. I froze, letting the sound echo through the empty station. My mop trembled in my hands. For a moment, I convinced myself it was nothing, just an old station creaking and settling in the night. But 10 minutes later, The noise came again, louder this time. My stomach sank. Two metallic clanks in the exact same spot? It couldn't be coincidence. I cautiously approached the tunnel entrance, heart hammering in my chest. My flashlight barely penetrated the darkness ahead. I considered calling out, but hesitation took over. Something about that silence felt wrong. I stayed close to the platform edge, trying to steady my breathing. It wasn't moving yet, but I could feel it watching. Then I heard it, a child's voice, small and frantic, calling for help. My heart stopped. My first instinct was to ignore it, to pretend I hadn't heard, but the voice tugged at something deeper, something moral I couldn't ignore. I knew the tracks were dangerous. Freight trains could come without warning, but I couldn't leave a child stranded. I took a deep breath, carefully descended the steps, and stepped onto the tracks. Darkness swallowed me. "Are you okay?" I called, my voice echoing unnaturally through the tunnel. There was a pause before the voice responded. "Yes, but just keep walking." My gut twisted. I hesitated. Something about that tone, that insistence, felt off. I wanted to turn back, but the child's presence held me frozen, caught between fear and responsibility. As I moved deeper into the tunnel, my flashlight revealed a faint shadow ahead. A small figure, clearly a child. Relief surged briefly, but then I noticed a second shadow. Taller, broader, unmistakably adult. My blood ran cold. I realized with sinking dread that this might not be a simple case of a lost kid. Whoever, or whatever, was here could have been setting a trap. Every step I took felt amplified, my senses hyper-aware. I thought about my options. Calling the police from inside the tunnel wasn't feasible. My phone had limited signal, and even if I could, I had no idea how fast they could reach me. I needed to get to safety, but stepping back toward the platform risked drawing attention. Moving forward risked walking into the unknown. My mind raced, calculating every possible outcome. I kept my voice steady, though my hands shook. "What's wrong? Why are you here?" The child's answer was delayed, measured. "Just keep walking." The insistence was unnerving. Something about the repetition felt deliberate, almost rehearsed. I realized then that this wasn't just a lost child. Someone had trained this child, or forced them, to manipulate anyone who might come close. My heart pounded. The adult shadow remained still, silent, watching, waiting. Panic started to bubble beneath my skin, but I forced myself to stay calm. I edged along the tracks, keeping the shadows in sight, but maintaining distance. Every instinct screamed to bolt, to run, to escape, but I couldn't leave without knowing the child was out of immediate danger. Then, a horrifying realization struck me. The adult was clearly capable of violence, and I had no idea how many people, or what else, could be lurking further in the tunnel. I made the only decision I could. I retreated, slowly at first, then faster as adrenaline surged. The child called out again. "Wait! Where are you going?" My gut twisted. I wanted to answer, to reassure, but I couldn't. Not when the adult shadow could reach me at any moment. I scrambled back up the steps to the platform, my legs burning, my heart hammering against my ribs. Once safe, I called the police and reported everything in detail. Within minutes, officers swarmed the station, flashlights slicing through darkness, searching every nook and cranny of the tunnels. They found one chilling clue, a single child's shoe abandoned on the tracks. No other trace of the child or the adult. Theories were whispered. Perhaps a child kidnapped and forced to lure a Good Samaritan into a trap, or maybe the adult had a twisted game involving their own child. Hours of investigation turned up nothing. The subway tunnel swallowed the truth, leaving only fear and speculation. Even now, years later, the memory remains vivid. I can still hear the child's voice echoing in my mind, small, desperate, but impossibly controlled. I can still see the two shadows, the innocent and the menacing, etched into my memory. The New York City subway, for all its chaos and noise, can be silent, empty, and terrifying. And sometimes, the silence is louder than any train rushing to the tunnels. That day taught me something chilling. Danger isn't always obvious. It doesn't always announce itself with sirens or threats. Sometimes it hides in shadows, using innocence as a lure. And the only way to survive is to trust your instincts and escape while you still can. I haven't walked those tracks alone since. And I don't plan to. But late at night, when the city is quiet, I can't help but replay the scene, wondering what could have happened if I hadn't been cautious, if I had ignored my instincts, if I had stepped 1 foot too far into the darkness. I've always been drawn to abandoned places. There's something about their silence, the way decay clings to walls, the history trapped in dust and rust. That summer, I heard about an old warehouse on the outskirts of town, deserted for decades, its reputation tainted by stories of break-ins, fights, and maybe worse. The locals called it the Hollow, and I'll admit, the name alone was enough to make my curiosity spike. I knew I shouldn't go alone, but there's always that voice in the back of your head daring you to test the limits. The warehouse was even more imposing in person than I had imagined. Massive steel beams rose like skeletons. Windows broken and boarded, graffiti scrawled across every surface. I parked my car a few blocks away and walked closer, feeling the gravel crunch underfoot. The smell hit me first, a mixture of mold, rust, and something acrid I couldn't quite place. I paused, hesitated, but ultimately shrugged it off. I was here for the thrill, for the story I'd tell later, not for caution. I stepped through a gaping hole in the side of the building, and darkness swallowed me immediately. My flashlight cut a narrow beam, illuminating broken machinery, scattered debris, and puddles reflecting jagged shards of moonlight. The air was heavy, and every footstep echoed, bouncing off the metal walls in unpredictable rhythms. I could feel my pulse in my ears as I moved deeper into the warehouse. It didn't take long for the first unsettling noises to start. A metallic clatter somewhere to my left. I froze. The sound repeated, soft but deliberate. Not the natural creak of the building settling. Not the small shifts of rats or wind. It sounded human. My imagination raced. Was someone else here? A homeless person, maybe, or someone worse. I reminded myself that I had a flashlight, my phone, and the knowledge of the building's layout from some half-forgotten map I found online. Still, the adrenaline made my hands shake. I continued cautiously, trying to stay aware of every sound and shadow. The deeper I went, the stranger things became. I found a corner with a chair tipped over, chains coiled around its legs. The floor was littered with what looked like old ropes, some charred or stained in ways I didn't want to examine too closely. And the smell, the bleach-like chemical stench that reminded me of a hospital or cleaning supply closet, was overwhelming. I gagged slightly but pressed forward. Curiosity had me frozen between fascination and fear. That's when I first saw it. A fleeting shadow moving just beyond my light's reach. At first, I thought it was a trick of the reflection, but then another movement, quicker this time, dashed past a stack of crates. My heart hammered. My breath caught. Someone or something was here. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe a homeless person had taken shelter. Maybe it was a kid playing a prank. But the air felt charged, heavy with intent. I moved more carefully, flashlight swinging, revealing more broken furniture, graffiti markings that seemed almost like warnings. Then the noises started, soft whispers, unintelligible, echoing off the metal walls. I couldn't tell if they were coming from one person or multiple. My adrenaline spiked. I considered leaving, but I wanted proof, something to show I had made it this far. I stepped into a larger open area, and that's when the object came. A can, thrown from somewhere I couldn't see, clattered across the floor near my feet. I jumped back, tripping slightly over debris, heart racing so fast it felt like it would burst from my chest. The whispers stopped for a moment, replaced by heavy, deliberate footsteps. I backed toward the wall, trying to stay quiet, trying to assess where the danger was. The footsteps got closer, slow, measured, like someone enjoying the fear they were instilling. Shadows shifted in the corner of my vision. I could make out a faint silhouette, a tall figure, moving deliberately, staying just out of reach of my flashlight. My instinct screamed to run, but my body felt heavy, trapped by both fear and disbelief. Then a noise that I'll never forget, a harsh, metallic clang, followed immediately by the soft scraping of something dragged across the concrete floor. My mind tried to make sense of it, but there was no rational explanation. I realized that if this was a person, they were not here for survival. They were here for something else, something darker. The figure didn't speak, but the intent in their movements was clear. I was trespassing in someone's territory, and they didn't want me here. I decided it was time to escape. Every step backward was cautious, deliberate, flashlight scanning every shadow, every possible hiding place. And then, just as I was nearing what I hoped was the exit, I felt a presence behind me. A hand, a brush against my shoulder. I spun around, flashlight swinging wildly. Nothing, just the empty warehouse. But I could hear it. The breathing, soft and deliberate, coming from the darkness. I didn't hesitate. I bolted, tripping over debris, heart pounding, until I reached the broken hole I had entered through. Outside, I gasped for air, collapsing onto gravel. The night felt alive in a way I'd never experienced. Every sound from the distant city amplified, every shadow a potential threat. I looked back once. The warehouse loomed silently, its broken windows like dark eyes watching me. I didn't go back that night, or any night after. Even now, weeks later, I can't shake the memory. Sometimes, when it's quiet, I swear I hear whispers, faint and distant, echoing from places I've long since left. I can't explain what I saw, or if what I felt was real, but I know one thing. Curiosity got me close to something I shouldn't have been near, and some places, some shadows, are best left unexplored. I didn't think much of it at first. A cheap motel at the edge of town, just a place to crash for the night. I was traveling alone, tired from the long drive, and the flickering neon sign promised a bed and a shower. The name was forgettable, the kind that could belong anywhere, and maybe that should have been my first warning. There was something about the way the wind rattled the sign that night, the way the parking lot felt too empty, too quiet. The lobby smelled faintly of disinfectant, masking a musty odor beneath it. The clerk was distant, barely making eye contact, more interested in his screen than the fact that I had just walked in. He handed me the key without asking questions, and I took it, ignoring the small knot of unease forming in my stomach. I got to my room, and the flickering overhead light greeted me like a warning. The carpet was stained, the wallpaper peeling, and the air smelled faintly of cigarettes mixed with something chemical like ammonia. It was late when I finally lay down, and the silence was almost comforting at first. Then I noticed it, the soft tapping from somewhere outside the room. At first, I assumed it was the old pipes settling in the night, but then the tapping shifted, slow, deliberate, almost like someone was walking on the other side of the wall. My heart rate quickened. I tried to convince myself it was nothing, just the building reacting to the night's temperature, but the noise was too rhythmic, too intentional. Minutes passed. The tapping grew louder, closer. I could hear faint scratches, a soft shuffling that didn't match any natural sound. I tried to ignore it, focusing on my phone, scrolling aimlessly, but I couldn't concentrate. Something was in the room, or near it. My mind raced. Could it be someone in the next room? Or worse, someone in mine? The thought alone made my skin crawl. I got up, cautiously opening the door, just enough to peer into the hallway. It was empty, silent. The faint flickering light above cast shadows that seemed to dance along the walls, making me second-guess every movement. I stepped back inside, locking the door behind me, but the feeling of being watched didn't fade. Every creak of the floor, every distant footstep, made me jump. I told myself to calm down, that I was being paranoid. But then I saw it, a shadow flickering past the window. My curtains were drawn, yet the shadow was just enough to make my stomach drop. I approached slowly, heart pounding, flashlight in hand, ready to confront whatever or whoever was outside. But nothing was there, just a parking lot, empty, with only the wind stirring the leaves. Then came the knocking, soft at first, almost polite, then louder, insistent, right on my door. I froze, trying to catch my breath, debating my next move. I thought about calling the front desk, but what if it was the person who handed me the key? What if they were part of this? My instinct screamed at me not to answer. I grabbed a heavy chair and placed it against the door, my hands shaking violently. Minutes stretched like hours. The knock stopped for a moment, replaced by soft tapping from the window, then resumed with more force. I whispered to myself, trying to rationalize it, but nothing made sense. The building was supposed to be quiet, empty, yet here I was trapped, alone with an intruder, or maybe multiple intruders, testing the limits of my fear. I considered escaping to the bathroom window, but it was high off the ground, and I didn't want to risk injury. My phone barely had signal, and I didn't want to draw attention by screaming into the night. I stayed quiet, breathing shallow, listening to the faint sounds echoing through the room. The knocking grew impatient, then stopped abruptly. Silence. I waited, convinced it was over, before finally gathering the courage to peek through the peephole. Nothing. No one in the hallway. No one outside. But the feeling didn't leave me. Something had been here, I knew it. The air was heavier, charged with intent. I grabbed my flashlight, and flashlight beam cut across the floor. That's when I noticed it. A single footprint in the dust near the door. Too large to be mine. Too deliberate to be random. Morning couldn't come fast enough. I packed my things, still on edge, glancing over my shoulder at every sound. When I reached the lobby, the clerk was gone, leaving the desk empty, as if nothing had happened. I didn't ask for a receipt. I didn't say a word. I drove off, keeping my eyes on the rearview mirror, heart still racing, and the memory of that night lodged deep in my mind. Even now, I can't explain it. Who or what was in that room? Was it a trespasser, a prank, or something darker? The footprint was real, undeniable, yet vanished the moment I left. I've stayed at many motels since, but I never sleep without triple checking the locks, listening for every creak, every sound, and wondering if I'm alone. Because sometimes what seems quiet isn't empty. Sometimes what seems safe hides eyes that watch, waiting for a chance to test you. I've always loved hiking alone. There's something about being deep in the woods, away from the hum of civilization, that makes you feel alive. That summer, I found a trail that wasn't on most maps, a narrow path winding through dense forest, thick with moss and towering trees. The locals warned me it could be easy to get lost, but I liked the challenge. The solitude, the isolation, it was exactly what I wanted. The trail was quiet at first, the kind of silence only a deep forest can hold. Birds occasionally chirped, leaves rustled with the wind, and the soft crunch of my boots on the dirt kept me grounded. The sunlight filtering through the canopy created patterns on the forest floor, and I felt at peace. That peace, however, was fragile. I noticed the first oddity about halfway in. Footprints in the mud. Too large and too deep to be any animal I recognized. They didn't follow a straight path. They zigzagged, stopped, then started again as if whoever or whatever made them have been wandering aimlessly. I shrugged it off at first. Could be a hiker, I told myself. But as I looked closer, the prints seemed deliberate, placed in a way that suggested someone had been watching, studying the trail as I walked it. The whisper started soon after, faint at first, almost like the wind brushing against the trees in a way that sounded suspiciously like words. I stopped, listening, trying to make sense of it. "Hello," I called softly, voice trembling slightly. Nothing, just the rustling of leaves. I took a deep breath and continued, flashlight in my backpack just in case I needed it later. Minutes passed, and the whispers grew louder, clearer. At first, I thought I was imagining it, my mind playing tricks because of the isolation, but then I heard my name. Not shouted, not urgent, just my name, drawn out and whispered, as if carried on the wind itself. My heart slammed against my ribs. I spun around. Nothing. Shadows between the trees stretched and shifted unnaturally. Every instinct screamed at me to turn back, but curiosity held me rooted for a moment longer. The trail narrowed, the trees closing in overhead. Mist began to creep along the forest floor, hiding the path ahead. I noticed more footprints, now closer together, intersecting mine, matching my pace. Panic started to rise in my chest. Someone was following me, or something. The whispers turned into phrases I couldn't fully catch, words that sounded almost human, yet wrong, distorted. The hairs on my arms stood on end. I tried to speed up, but the forest seemed to resist. Branches reached out like hands, snagging my jacket, tripping me, forcing me to slow down. The whispers became more insistent, circling me from every direction. I could feel eyes on my back, in the trees, everywhere. My mind raced. Could it be a prank? A group of people hiding in the forest? Maybe, but the logic didn't fit. The precision, the timing, the complete silence apart from the whispers. Then I saw it, a figure between the trees, moving just out of clear sight, taller than a person should be, unnaturally still one moment, then gliding forward the next. I froze. Every horror movie I'd ever watched flashed in my mind. My pulse accelerated, every nerve on edge. I whispered a prayer under my breath and tried to retrace my steps, but the forest seemed endless, the trail disappearing beneath a canopy of fog. A sudden movement behind me made me spin around. Nothing, just the mist, the shadows, and the whispering. But I could feel it, presence, intent, following me, measuring me. My phone had no signal. Shouting for help would do nothing. I had only my wits and my own adrenaline. I began to jog cautiously, flashlight in hand, scanning every shadow. Branches whipped at my face, roots snared my boots, and the whispers seemed to echo my movements, matching my pace. I stumbled upon a small clearing. For a moment, I thought I was safe. The fog lifted slightly, the trees thinner, the forest less oppressive. But then I heard it, a low, guttural screech, human yet impossible, originating from deep in the woods behind me. I don't think I've ever run faster in my life. My lungs burned, my heart hammered, every step sending vibrations through the soft forest floor. The screech followed, echoing, reverberating, chilling me to the bone. I ran until the trail looped back toward the edge of the forest. Every glance over my shoulder showed nothing, yet I knew something had been following me, something that could vanish into the shadows at will. When I finally reached my car, breathless and trembling, I locked the doors and sat there for what felt like hours, staring at the edge of the forest. The whispers had stopped, the screeches faded, but the feeling of being watched lingered. Even now, weeks later, I can still feel it when I think back. When it's quiet at night, I imagine the tall shadows slipping through the trees, watching, waiting, whispering. I've never hiked that trail again, and I doubt I ever will. There are some places where the forest itself feels alive, where the whispers of something unseen follow you long after you've left. And sometimes, I swear, I can still hear my name being whispered on the wind, calling me back to that trail. These 6 stories might seem unrelated at first glance, but they share one thing in common: the unknown lurking just out of sight. The moments when curiosity, daring, or simple misfortune leads ordinary people into situations where danger, mystery, and fear intersect. Whether it was a shadow in the tunnel, a whisper in the forest, or a presence at a deserted motel, each encounter reminds us that the world is far bigger and far stranger than we realize. So, the next time you're walking alone at night, hiking through an unfamiliar trail, or even just stepping onto a quiet subway platform, remember, sometimes the scariest things aren't the ones you see. They're the ones you can't. And for the people in these stories, those unseen dangers left memories they'll never forget.